Okay guys, so today we're talking about rough cold start on your BMW M54. So this applies E30, E46, E39, X5, X3, etc. Now, there's a lot to go over real quick here. Try to make this video fairly short. A lot of you guys love my backyard, so I figured I'd start the video here. Then we're gonna move to the shop. Probably the most common question I get for M54 guys. You go outside, you start it up in the morning, idles rough for 20-30 seconds, then goes back to idle and smooth, and it's fine the rest of the day. Over and over and over in the comment section we get that, so I figure I'd just address it today. All right, so we're gonna start off with this one first. This is the most common situation to have go wrong, is the coil pack. The coil packs on these, let me go a little closer, you can see, this is M5 one, but you get the idea. These can actually go bad, but not throw a check engine light. And how they'll go bad, you'll start out, it'll start rough cold starting in the morning. If you turn the engine off during the cold start and start it back up and it stops, chances are it's a coil pack. It's something with the heat. After these get heated up, they stop doing it altogether. Also, depends on what car you have. If you have a manual car and you're driving, you put it in a excessively high gear. Let's say you're cruising at 20-30 miles an hour and you put it like a fourth gear. You give a little accelerator, a little gas, and you can feel it bucking a little bit. That'll also give you a pre-warning of this. So if you ever see a check engine light flash or anything like that and you get a cylinder number, this is what it's gonna be. That's the most common thing. Now, just the recap here. If your spark plugs are total junk, and another problem in today's world is counterfeit spark plugs. China's making all this stuff, it looks just like the original thing. If you happen to get a set of Chinese spark plugs, which at this point it's hard to tell, they can misfire, they cause problems, and any kind of spark plug misfire can go back and ruin your coil pack. Now, the next thing is, there again, go out in the morning, start your car up, rough cold start. If you notice this only when it's really cold outside, it could be your PCV. All right. Luckily, this is the kind of guy that has laying around. This is an M54 PCV, if you can see that or not. And how this works, it has a diaphragm in here, rubber diaphragm. If it gets ripped or gets any kind of issue, it'll leak vacuum through there, but maybe not all the time. Or you may only notice it on cold start. The bottom part is a little funnel, it's the oil separator, and all these associated hard lines that go to it. If any of those leak and even have a crack in them at all, that's gonna cause problems. Now, ordinarily that causes horrible gas mileage. It causes rough running periodically most of the time, right? But it could only do it on cold start. I've seen that quite a bit, and then kind of go away as it warms up. You'll be getting random lean codes a lot of times if you have that, but then again, not always. It just all depends. Depends on the state of that, how bad it is. If it has a little tear, you could even hear like a screeching sound sometimes. You can hear a popping sound sometimes. It all depends. But the number one thing that ruins those is extremely cold weather. And what happens, that collects vapor from the engine. And if it gets really cold, that'll actually freeze that and it'll bust the diaphragm or bust the lines or bust the PCV itself, CCV. And there you go. So on the other hand of that, if it's frozen and it's sealing up whatever is bad, it might cold start smooth and not starting running rough till it actually warms up and melts the ice and that kind of thing. Also, it might get frozen, it might get damaged over the winter, but the problems may not show up till months later, right? So that's number two. Number three is this bad boy. Now, when they started M52 engines, they started making these out of more of a plastic instead of a rubber, and it seems like all the problems with these went away. This is actually the intake boot, the throttle body boot, whatever you want to call it. There's two of these on M54, M52 TU. And a lot of times, this is actually the upper. A lot of times it'll get cracks in here. It'll get dry rotted and cracked out. I don't have a lower. The one that goes on the throttle body. Oh yes, I do have a lower. Hold on. The problem is I have almost everything, and I forget where I put it, forget where it's at. But remember, we just did the X5, so we had this still off the X5. This is the lower. This thing's nasty. And this is the out of control valve tube, and that's a smaller diameter tube. It's about 1 inch. And a lot of times that'll crack right in here between the ribs and you can't see it. This one is actually really good, which is concerning because it's never been replaced. Very odd. So that's the next biggest thing. That a lot of times, there again, it could throw mass airflow sensor codes, it could throw lean codes, or it could do nothing besides make it rough cold start. It all depends on severity of the cracks in it. Also, one thing to check too is any kind of the small lines associated to it, and then the big clamp that goes on the throttle body, which is right here, right? Make sure that's on there. A lot of times that'll pop off and be cocked off to the side if whoever's put it on there didn't put it on there correctly, or somebody's reaching down in there to adjust something and knocked it loose. That's really common. They're kind of hard to tighten up, so they get overlooked quite a bit. They don't get the amount of torque they need on the hose clamp to hold it on there correctly, and there you go. I don't like holding this camera at all by hand, but we're gonna try to hold her nice and still for you guys. The second thing it could be is the cam sensor, on this side, the crank sensor, or either one of the cam sensors. This car actually has 2 cam sensors as an intake that sits in up behind here, and then the exhaust cam sensor sits over there. That can not only cause rough cold start, but all kinds of issues. We've seen that several times, throwing no check engine light, all kinds of rough idle, all kinds of weird, bizarre problems. Even dying at a stop sign, not wanting to restart because the sensors go bad. And you can see here, the light's a little bit weird here. Here's the upper boot that's had in my hand. This has all been replaced on this car, like I just covered with that. Also the DISA, we had some problems with the DISA valve. And on the DISA valve on the very back, it has a little vacuum bulb. As you can see it right there. And the diaphragm will go bad. And that's what pulls the DISA valve open and close. Well, once that goes bad, it starts leaking vacuum. You start getting weird lean codes and weird issues, bizarre issues, right? So that's one other possibility. Another one is a mass airflow sensor. If you have an M54 and you have a bunch of miles on it, at some point in time, you're gonna have to deal with the mass airflow sensor being bad. And that's probably the most difficult to diagnose. I've seen that over and over and over again. Now, there's many, many, many different levels of bad mass airflow sensor on one of these cars you can run into. Number one, somebody's replaced it with a Chinese one. That you can't use that on this. That's no worky. Unfortunately, a legit one is about $150 to $200. So your best bet, if you have one go bad, you don't have $150 to $200 to go spend on it, get on eBay, try to find a used OEM one. That's your best bet, 30, 40 bucks. Maybe won't last for the life of the car, but if you don't have the money to buy the brand new one, go that direction. Anything with that name brand on it, it doesn't work on these. So that thing, the mass airflow sensor, I've seen them go bad to where they cause rough cold start. They cause no cold start, where they won't even start when it's cold. And then you go up and unplug them and the car fires right up. And then many, many variants of check engine lights, anything from the EML light, anything from the transmission light even. I've seen that cause that before. And then on to hot film air codes, incorrect airflow, mass air meter, incorrect reading, low voltage, high voltage, open circuit, and so on. If you have this problem, the car won't start, or starts and dies, you unplug that and the car starts up, that doesn't necessarily mean it's that. That's the next misconception of it. But there's a pretty good chance that probably is that. Just remember, you guys, on these cars, that's a different diameter for the 325 and the 323, 325, 328 is a different size than 330. All the 330 stuff, or the 3.0i X5, X3, all have a bigger diameter mass airflow, bigger diameter hoses going through the throttle body, bigger diameter throttle body, The intake manifold is different, and the disavow is different. The disavow, there's actually 3 different sizes of those. M52 TU, which was essentially 99 to 2000, early 2001. That had a different size DISA than, let's for say 2001, 2002 and up 328. That had the medium size DISA. Then you had the 3.0, which had the biggest DISAs. You got 3 different sizes of those stacked in. It gets very complex when you go to order parts, and a lot of people order parts, they get it and it doesn't fit, all right? Even if the ad says it's one thing, you order it, you get it, and it's the wrong thing. So beware of that, no doubt. I'm gonna touch my face on here and make sure that we're focused. That seems to be the most common problem on that. Other than cold start issues, cracked valve cover is another one. On these, the PCV pulls vacuum through the valve cover. If you have external cracks, you're gonna have problems. And by this, I mean, let's give, for instance, if you have one of these cars, let's say you have E39, the most common for cracked valve cover, because the way the setup is in the filter system, you can smell it the easiest coming through the car, right? So you drive your car, it smells like oil. You put a new valve cover gasket on, it still smells like oil. Let it idle. You can see a little puff of smoke every once in a while where it's dripping down. The valve cover's cracked, right? It used to be a valve cover, one of these was like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But now you could buy them for like 120 bucks. You could use the aftermarket one. It's not going to hurt anything. If you update your coil pack harness and your coil packs to the 03 and up, 02 and up style, you get the reinforced valve cover and so on, where it's not going to crack as much, right? You guys with the older valve covers, the pre-2001, those are known for cracking and having that problem, but the newer ones, not so much. There's several other things, you know, no crank, no start, then you get into fuses by the ECU. You get into ignition problems like the X5 just had, where the ignition little module actually went bad, and things like that. But as far as a car that starts and just rough idles a cold start, that's pretty much most of it. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. I've made videos like this in the past. I have a lot of M54 guys on the channel. I've made so many M54 videos, I don't really know what else to do. But I still want to do something for the M54 guys on the channel and give them a little information. If I'd done a video a year or 2 ago, it's like I never did it, right, at this point. So I figured I'd make this video today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. M54 guys, I haven't forgot about you. That's gonna be it. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day.